So I would like to call the meeting to order for the Convention Center. And would like each member of the team to introduce themselves in the order of the mayor, comptroller, county, LCRA, St. Louis Municipal Finance Corporation, and the CBC. Let's start with the mayor, Jared.
Good afternoon, Jared Boyd, Chief of Staff, representing the Mayor's Office.
LaTanya Kenner, Deputy Comptroller for Finance and Development, representing the Comptroller's Office.
Deanna Vicker, Chief Administrative Officer, St. Louis County, representing the County Executive of St. Louis County.
Neil Richardson is not available, and Tom Shepard is not available. We'll go to Kitty Ratcliffe for the CBC.
Kitty Ratcliffe, President of Explore St. Louis, officially the St. Louis Convention and Visitors Commission.
Okay, and we also have guests on the meeting. Charles Salisbury, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I'm Charles Salisbury. I served as bond counsel to the St. Louis Municipal Finance Authority in connection with the issuance of the bonds. And also in that role, I helped to develop and consummate the financing agreement.
Craig Lucas.
Good afternoon, Craig Lucas with Kwame Building Group. We are the program managers for the modernization and expansion of the Convention Center project.
We also have some guests, Ryan Coleman and then Tyson Pruitt.
Oh, sure. This is Ryan Coleman, Fiscal Officer 2 in the Office of the Comptroller.
Tyson Pruitt, Public Information Officer to the Comptroller. I'm just here as support staff today.
And our infamous Richard Bradley.
Rich Bradley, President of the Board of Public Service, City of St. Louis.
Thank you, everyone. Next item on the agenda, are there any corrections to the prior month's minutes? If not, can I get a motion and a second to approve the prior month's minutes?
Since I drafted them, I'll make the motion.
Second. Deanna, you second the minutes?
Deanna Vicker, second.
Thank you. So there's been a motion and second to approve the prior meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you. So our next agenda item is a report from Kwame Building Group. Craig Lucas, who is the project manager for the Convention Center expansion, and he will provide an update on the project.
And LaTanya, I do see we have somebody else joining.
Okay. Is that a Billy Anderson? Okay, no,
They left.
He's no longer with us. Okay.
If it's okay, I would like to share my screen just for kind of a brief schedule review. And what I wanted to do was take a few minutes and just kind of go through the status of where we are basically with the impact that the delay to being able to be at Project One is having, and some of the discussions that we've had recently on potential further impacts to the project and the program. So, and what I put on the screen is a couple of excerpt dates from our last two schedule updates that we provided to the project team as a whole. The first one was on September 30th of this year, and the most recent one was on October 31st of this year. And the first, I guess, 4 or 5 items represent excerpts from what we call the Project One, which is the first major package in the program. The program is made up of 4 packages: the demolition of the C9 garage, which is currently underway, early utilities package, which we did not get any bidders, but we are in the process of putting together a rebid for that. And those are 2 smaller packages representing $3 to $4 million total in construction costs out of the $163 million that we have budgeted for the program. The 2 main packages are Project One and Project Two, as we've named them. In Project One, so these are the dates from Project One. The drawings were actually completed and ready for issue of bid on the 12th of October. We were planning to receive bids on the 17th of December with a notice to proceed on that project on January 26th of 22. The project duration is estimated at 490 days, and we would have a substantial completion of Project One of 5/31/23. Looking at that same activities on our latest update, and this is based off of the delay that we have with not being able to put Project One out due to the funding issues that we currently are experiencing. The issue for bid now is January 4th of 22. And keep in mind, these drawings are actually ready and sitting there waiting to go out for bid. But as I explained before, because of the complexity and the holidays, it would not be prudent to put those out for bid until after we have completed our the holiday period. So the earliest we could put those out for bid would be January 4th. With that, we would be able to receive bids March the 3rd with a notice to proceed of April 22nd of 22. Utilizing the same duration, we would anticipate a substantial completion of 8/25/23. Now, what that represents, if you look at this, is essentially a 3-month delay that we've already experienced in the project for Project One. Now, has it impacted the overall project and completion? To this date, not yet, but I want to put a caveat to that, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a few minutes. So if you look at the last 3 items down here, it says Project Two issue for bid 2/8, and also that's holding at 2/8, and Project Two substantial completion 9/30, and that's holding at 9/30. So 9/30 is the substantial completion date for the entire project, and that date is a date that goes to support a significant amount of business that the convention center already has on the books, and Kitty can explain a little bit more about that. But the thing that's key about that, if you look in the last column at the substantial completion of Project One at 8/25, and then the substantial completion of Project Two at 9/30, we're essentially down to a month between those 2. Any delays that we have moving forward, we're going to be into the same completion date or even further out. Now, I want to also highlight these dates because these are real tentative dates, and because what we're seeing in the market is a lot of fluctuations in both pricing and commodities and material deliveries. One of the things that we recognized early on was that structural steel, which is going to be critical in Project One, was going to be a long lead item. And so that was why we actually came up with the Project One and Project Two scenarios, so that we could get that Project One out early, along with the structural steel package early, to take advantage of some schedule advantages of doing that. We've almost completely eroded those schedule advantages that we would have had for getting those structural steel for Project One out early. So what does that mean? Is the structural steel market is improving. We actually have gone out and checked the market in the last few days, and the structural steel market is holding about the same. So we're not seeing any improvement. So it's still a unfavorable market for delivery of structural steel. But the other thing that's starting to come to light is that we're seeing other items in the construction community, as far as materials, that are showing up as big problems. We had some information that was brought to the team actually earlier today were some local projects that's recently bid in the last few weeks. For their HVAC mechanical equipment, we're getting 72 to 77 week deliveries on their equipment. That's unheard of. That's over a year delivery on items that you would go out and buy today. We've had problems with in the markets with getting roofing materials. Early on in the year, there was a problem with getting lumber. So I'm saying all this to say that these dates are very tentative and very tenuous. We don't have a good idea of what we're going to be able to commit to until we know exactly when we'll be able to commit. So in other words, once we have the financing issue resolved and we know when we actually will be able to go out to the market, then we can start looking at what the current conditions are in the market, because they're literally changing on a weekly basis. So the market that we were planning on bidding on in October last month isn't the same market that we'll be bidding on in January when we move forward. So that's kind of like a quick snapshot of where we are and really the ripple effect that this delay is having. One other thing that I would mention is that if you look at the schedule also, it shows a bid date for project 1 of 1/2, and it shows a bid date of project 2 of 2/8, basically about a month apart. So what that says is that we would literally have 2 major packages out for bid and during the same space. 30 days apart, we think that may be enough window for that to work, but once again, that's an evaluation that we have to look at. And that is some other items that we have to look at from a schedule standpoint that we might have to do some mitigation or some adjustments to. So with that, are there any questions?
Let me, if I can just add a little bit more context to what everybody's looking at here. Because I want to explain just a little bit further the difference between the 2 projects. So project 1 is geographic difference and materials different. Project 1 is the expansion of the exhibit hall primarily, which is on the C9 block where that garage has now been taken down. They're just doing cleanup of it now for the next couple of weeks. But the structure is down, the site's being prepared. The majority of the steel for the project, now not all the steel, of course, but the majority of the steel for the project goes to that block, that part. And that's why we broke this into 2 pieces, so that we could get ahead of the expected delays in the delivery of steel. And as Craig has said, we've now lost that window. The second project, project 2, is the conversion of the interior space that is currently hall 1 and 2, the conversion of that into a ballroom. And that's why there's not as much steel needed, because the structure is already built. It's just rebuilding what's already there, same flooring, all of that, and then opening that up out onto the plaza and a beautiful park space, which obviously doesn't need a lot of steel. So that's why we separated the 2, so that we could get ahead of it. So that's the one thing I wanted to explain in terms of the rationale. The other thing I wanted to explain is the delay, and looking at this schedule so you'll understand it, the delay that has caused us to say that the National Baptist Convention is the first group that is going to be negatively impacted. Project 1 builds a brand new exhibit hall. And what you see here on this chart is that was expected to be substantially completed by the end of May in 2023. What's not shown here is that following that substantial completion, there would have to be a connection between the new hall and the existing hall 4 that was expected to take another 6 to 8 weeks. Craig, is that right? 2 months, roughly 2 months, which would get us to the 1st of August, roughly. That would then open up all of that space for us to be able to move them from their contracted space now, which is halls 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And 1 and 2 are being converted to the ballroom and will be under construction still at that time frame. But with the addition of Hall X, we'd be able to shift them to 3, 4, 5, and X and keep the amount of space exactly the same as they have it contracted now. With project 1 not being able to be finished until the end of August, we still have that connection time that has to be made between Hall X and Exhibit Hall 4, and that's built into project 2. And that's why we won't have either space. We won't have the halls 1 and 2 or the new Hall X available for the National Baptist Convention. Their dates are over Labor Day week, that very, very first weekend in September. And that's why they're the first group that is so impacted that we had to tell them, we cannot promise them that we're going to have their space available. The next group that's going to be affected is a group that starts at the beginning of that completion date that you have for the overall substantial completion. It starts September 30th. And if this shifts further down, we're going to have to be having that same conversation with them. That is a national corporate convention. We don't get a whole lot of those here. So that will be a very difficult conversation to also have. But so that's, I wanted to put those two things in perspective so that you understand. I think there was some accusation that was made in the Post-Dispatch article yesterday that we were just we were following the Spire path of, creating an emergency when there isn't one, to put fear in people's eyes. We're not creating an emergency that there isn't one. There actually is an emergency. And so I hope that explains it a little bit better.
Are there any other questions of Craig Lucas? So Craig, when you look at the schedule and the schedule changes, is there an amount or a cost that you can attribute to the schedule change or the schedule delay?
You're talking about the current delay that we're looking at? It's strictly to not having project 1 out on the street for bid. We would be right in the middle of the bidding period for project 1. The drawings were completed, the design was done, delivered to BPS, and literally we were ready to go on the 12th of October to have that out for bid. So the delay in being able to do that is really what's causing this overall schedule delay that we're seeing here.
And if I can add to that, Craig, because we talked about this on the call this morning also, Ned had made this point this morning, was that with the two pieces, we would have had the actual award for the project 1 done and in an exact dollar amount before going out to bid for project 2. And so we would know whether there was going to be any extra money available to do some ad alternates, or whether there was some value engineering that was going to need to be done on project 2 to make it all fit. But now we won't do that, because we will not have the advantage of the lead time of getting the work out to bid and getting a hard price from a contractor.
I do have a question. Craig, do you think this will increase the likelihood of cost overruns with respect to the project?
So that was the next point I was going to bring out, is that the impacts, as I said, until we have a hard date on when we will actually start being able to go out for bid, we will be able to do an analysis based on the market of what the schedule impacts are, but it is also the cost impacts, because costs are moving all over the place also. So does that mean that we may have to do additional cost mitigation items or value engineering? That is a strong possibility. We also understand that we only have X amount of dollars, and that we can not spend above that. So we have to make sure the project fits within the budget that we have available. But what that means is we may not have the ability to do schedule mitigation. In other words, buy schedule back by putting scheduled overtime or some other things that we might be able to do. Most of the suppliers now are hesitant about even allowing you to buy an earlier slot in the fabrication cycle. There used to be a time when you could buy earlier slots in fabrication cycles just to get your materials earlier. Because of the supply chain it's just so backed up now, they're not even allowing you to do that. So to answer your question, is there a possibility that we could have cost impacts because of this? Absolutely. And we just have to be able to assess those once we have a hard date on when we'll be able to go out to bid and then see how that impacts the project overall.
So at this point, Craig, you're not able to really put a dollar value
No,
on the cost increase
no.
or the cost overruns.
Overruns, decrease, whatever those costs are. I agree. No, I would be hesitant to do that. And I would be hesitant to even put a final on the schedule impacts until we see what the market is doing when we know we're going out to bid.
Okay, thank you. Rich, would you like to add anything to Craig's presentation from BPS side?
No, I think Craig and Kitty are spot on. And I really agree with Craig's last statement about trying to put together some cost impact until we actually have a hard date when we can bid. I think it is premature to try to project those numbers as they are very dynamic and the process is changing daily.
Okay. Are there any other comments at this time? Because I'm thinking we know this information. Kwame, I mean, the dedicated team, Rich and his dedicated team, Kitty, you know this information back and forth. Is there any other entities or are there any other entities that we need to present this information to?
I just had a thought this morning, and I've talked to you about this briefly, LaTanya, and also to Craig briefly. But you know, we have been kind of at the mercy of someone else's schedule, and our ability to get the information out has been very reactive. So I thought I'd like to get everybody's ideas about what you think about us actually doing our own webinar that we would publicize, that we were going to do a webinar and we would bring all the really good experts that we have on this project out, from Kwame to Fentress to the various subs with David Mason Associates and Bush O'Donnell, and you know, all of the people that have been doing all the work on the engineering as well as the cost estimators, and really give a thorough presentation that we invite the county council members to watch if they want to, but also make it available to anybody else. You know, we've been dealing with this stuff out there from Clayco that, you know, where they've said we're not on the budget and we don't have a budget and we haven't, you know, analyzed the materials in the marketplace, which is absolutely not true. And we haven't really been given a good opportunity, except in rebuttal form, to make that case, since we weren't allowed to address it at the county council meeting publicly. So what do you think about that? I know there's some cons to it as well as some pros.
So you're saying we would do a webinar of the entire project with the professionals, with the team?
Right.
Of the
And
entire convention center expansion.
pretty much anyone could watch it.
And we're telling our story of where
Restricted.
we are with our top-notch professionals. I see positives. What are the negatives?
Well, we can't restrict who's going to see it and who isn't. So I don't know that that is necessarily a negative, but if you've got potential bidding contractors or labor unions or others, is there a reason not to do that in advance of putting something out to bid? I would kind of defer to the folks on the development side who've done these kinds of projects before as to whether or not that's a good idea to go out with that level of detail in the marketplace before you put things out on the street. But I do think it's a way for us to be very transparent and let people see how really good this team is.
Are there any comments?
Are you looking to explain, I'll call it the history, I'll call it the problem, the solution, and the path that you've taken on this road so far? Or are you looking to just talk about the team that's been acquired? Because I don't know that I've heard any concern about the team that's been acquired. I do, however, have heard, concerns about, why do we choose this location over another location, or, that type of scenario.
We have the folks from Clayco have gone individually to the council members, have testified at the committee of the whole, and have written in newspaper opinion pieces that the market conditions are very concerning, and that this team hasn't done a budget. They haven't recast their budget. They don't understand the implications of that. It's been said numerous times. And I think they have, at least with the council members directly, have positioned this, that Clayco is an expert in this field, and they're not. Fentress is an expert in this field. And I think we can show that and dispel any notions. I don't think we wanted to get into the history of it. I don't think it's, but it's up to you guys. I'm happy to do that if we need to.
So it's more telling our story of the expansion, where the teams have been picked, the final product or the final design. Would that be what would be in the webinar?
Yeah, I mean, we can't put to rest anything in the webinar about the North County project. So this is solely to deal with the project that we're doing, the value of the project that we're doing. The fact that we're not touching the dome, I guess we can talk about that, to Deanna's point about this, why we're not doing that. But this is the project we are doing. And, if there are other things if there are other funds that become available, and we can then do some other parts of the project, this has been designed to be able to do that. I just feel like we are getting, there are so many arguments that are being made out by Clayco that Ernie Trachis and Rita Days have picked up on and are using in various forms, and that we haven't been able to dispel that. At least if we can dispel those, then we're only back to talking about the North County Recreation Project.
So Craig and Rich, can you add value or a comment to Kitty's recommendation?
I guess I'll jump in the beginning, Craig, if you don't mind. Just my standpoint on it would be is this: you could certainly do that as long as it's informational and you talk about how you developed the project, how you selected the project, how the team was formed, the experience of the team, all the things that comprise this project. What I would not do is recommend getting into the finer construction details and cost estimates exactly, because I think what you do then is you add a lot of variables to the bidding process. So if you do it as informational and you do it as a matter of fact, and you talk pretty much in general terms and you explain the process, I think it's absolutely fine. Greg, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think it's almost becomes kind of a recap of what we've done over the last 12 months at a high level. If you think about it, when we do our informationals for contractors and our outreach, it's similar to what we do in those meetings. We give an overview of the project, the overview of the design and some of the scope. We can certainly do that. We could talk a little bit about some of the processes that we've used, some of the challenges that we've had and how we overcome them without getting into, as Rich said, the specifics that may impact the bidding market.
Are there any other comments?
This is, I'll call it from my experience in doing large projects. I think the lapse of time that it takes to get from beginning to when you're trying to go out to bid is usually a really long time, and it can really serve the project well to always do a recap of, I'll call it purpose and need, why you need the project, why you chose the location you chose, why you chose the renovations you chose, and why you're doing what you're doing, what the need is, how you're comparing to other markets, and why you chose the preferred alternative. I think if you go with that path every time, then anybody who's new to the game, new to the show, who hasn't been along for the ride and paying attention, has an understanding with everyone else of where you started and how you got there. I think there are some that I've heard still bringing up the Bottle Works District, that are bringing up the Dome, and they're obviously not remembering all of these past conversations that have been going on for 5, 6, 7, 8 years about this project. So I think if you're going to take the time to do a webinar and talk about the last 12 months, I think it would only serve the purpose and the goal to check the boxes on everything else that has been done in previous years. You don't need to talk about it for 2 hours, but a summary of how you got from the beginning to where you are.
Thank you, Deanna.
My 2 cents.
That's 10. It is very valuable. Appreciate it. I love the comments that we have heard. I love the feedback that we have heard. Are there any other comments before we move to our next agenda item?
If I may, Madam President, the concept of a webinar, I think, needs to have a very, very fundamental aspect to it to make it effective. It seems to me that the coordination team that's been assembled here contains a great deal of knowledge and a great level of reach, and I think is a unique feature to a project like this, to bring together the CVC, the comptroller, the mayor, the county, and the top economic development creature of the city, along with its St. Louis Municipal Finance authorities, which is a foundation to many of the projects that the city on its own will undertake. But to include in this webinar the essence of that financing team, if you will, coordination team, if you will, I think is will be and should be in and of itself a demonstration of how effective the planning and structuring and implementation of this project, how it can be. So that for instance, if you have a third party coming to the table like Clayco with ideas, the point is that the team members that are already assembled have heard similar proposals, and at the end of the day, decided on this path as the most effective and meaningful path toward solving the, as was earlier put forward, the issues that are confronting the community and its pathway forward in the area of convention and tourism. So I think that at the end of the day, with that webinar, if the community can be made aware of the impact and the potential positive direction that this team can give, I think that should go a long way toward making the community feel comfortable that this is the right project and that it's in good hands, because we brought together a cross section of the affected area to weigh in on the best direction.
Are there any more comment? Okay. Would you like to take a vote on the recommendation from Kitty regarding doing a webinar? Would you like to take a vote now? Or would you like to go into closed session for some further discussion before we consider that item? So I'm going to make a recommendation to, on our next order of an agenda item, the consideration of a motion to hold a closed session relating to matters which may involve discussions of leasing of real estate, discussions of sealed proposals and related contracts, discussion of records which are protected from disclosure by law, and or discussions of matters involving possible legal actions, causes of actions, or litigation, or confidential or privileged communications with attorneys or auditors, all as provided by law, including section 610 of the revised statute of Missouri Code as amended. So at this time, I would like to call for a motion to go into closed session. It has been motion and second that we go into closed session. And I'm
Sorry, who made the second? I'm just doing the record, the minute.
I'll make a second.
Okay.
So can we do a roll call vote to go into closed session? Kitty, can you call a roll call vote?
Yes. Mr. Boyd,
Aye.
Ms. Kenner,
Aye.
Ms. Vanker,
Aye.
Mr. Richardson,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd, Ms. Ratcliffe. Aye.
And we would like to have our council also into the closed session.
Yeah, I think the voting members are the coordination team members.
Can't hear you, Kitty, you're on mute.
Just realized that.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Boyd,
Aye.
Ms. Vanker,
Aye.
Ms. Kenner,
Aye.
Mr. Richardson,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd, Ms. Ratcliffe. Aye.
Okay, the next item.
Open session.
Was there something, okay. We have lost connection from Charles Salisbury, and it appears that he is not able to get back in. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the AC Next Gen budget per the financing agreement. Are we ready to take a vote? If so, can I have a motion to approve the AC Next Gen budget?
I'll make the motion for purposes of discussion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Are there any discussion?
This is Deanna. Just before we get to a vote, seeing that the funding hasn't been worked out with the council members of St. Louis County, I find it premature and unnecessary at this time to go and approve a budget at this point outside of what's already stated in the finance agreement that has been signed.
Thank you, Deanna. Are there any other comments on the approval of the budget per the financing agreement?
Is there I see Charles has joined us back.
Mhm.
Charles is back on.
Charles, you're on mute.
Have you all been on all this time? I've been trying to get back on and with no luck. I went to a different computer.
We have been on for about like 2 minutes from the prior session.
Okay,
Charles, I just had a question. So we have a motion and a second to approve the AC Next Gen budget. And Ms. Vanker has brought up the fact that it feels premature since the county council hasn't approved the budget and there is a financing agreement that has been signed. So I'm wondering what your legal opinion is on the requirements to do this budget.
yes,
outside
well,
of that.
I look at a budget similar to how you would look at it from if you were a public body, or if you were a nonprofit corporation or a for-profit corporation. A budget is just that. It's something that you start with the framework and then you develop it as time goes on. The financing agreement, in fact, itself says that the coordination committee is responsible. This is section, the last paragraph in Article 3. It talks about developing the final budget. So I think keeping that in mind, it seems to me that the committee is required to establish a final budget. And I think from what I've learned from witnessing the drafts, I think the committee is at that point where it can, in fact, establish a final budget. Because it is then going to go on and continue to develop that budget. So that, for example, once the bids start coming in and you need to finesse that budget in some respects, then you have the ability to do so. But if you don't have a point from which to begin, then it's going to be impossible for you to do your job. So it seems to me that passing a final budget is appropriate. That same language that I just referred to talks about after development of the final budget and prior to letting contracts. That's when the county needs to put its funds on the table. So there's still time so we wouldn't be able to say that the county is in default right now just because the final budget's been passed.
because we still have to move forward with getting those contracts lit. And as we just discussed, that's not going to happen until, the springtime. So the county will still have an opportunity, and we won't have to have any issues in terms of defaults or anything like that. But I think at some point, this committee needs to develop that final budget.
Deanna, did you have a comment?
Yes, I
Like your
just
hands up.
wanted to say that I think that if the council was in more of a forward motion, this would be absolutely appropriate. And I could see us coming together in a week's time and having this discussion and it being very fruitful and being able to move forward rapidly at that point. But I think right now, with the current state of county council, it is premature for St. Louis County to move forward at this point. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other discussion? Because we do have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the budget for the financing agreement.
Do you want to do this right now, or do you want to wait until after the December 8th meeting?
If we do wait, we need to move, reverse our motion and second for approving the financing for the budget for the financing agreement. And can I have some input on that request or feedback?
I think
Okay.
if we want to, if we wanted to delay a vote, all we'd need to do is have somebody withdraw the motion or withdraw their second, right?
Okay,
Just trying to get a sense of what people want to do. I made the motion. I can withdraw it if that's the sense. Or you could take a vote and see if it passes or not.
and then if it doesn't pass, we'll just come back to it after the meeting or come back to it at a later point after correspondence with the council.
Madam President, if I may.
Sure.
I think that given that St. Louis County's vote would be required for approval of the budget,
Mhm.
it seems to me that out of a spirit of cooperation, it may be beneficial for this group to keep itself in a positive light, for the mover to withdraw and a seconder to agree to that, rather than to go to a vote that it would not receive the proper number of votes in order to pass it.
Sure. Thank you very much.
I will withdraw the motion.
Second.
I second it since I made the initial motion.
All in favor?
I don't think you have to take a vote.
Don't have to.
The motion
Well, I
is
have to take the-
withdrawn.
So we just withdrew the motion. Thank you, Kitty, and thank you, Neil. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the coordination. Are there any other items that the coordination team wish to discuss? Are there any old business?
I think we left, just kind of left open the conversation about whether doing the webinar was something that the coordination team wants to do or not do. And I am not married to this at all. I'm just trying to figure out how to manage through some of the challenges that are coming our way. So if everybody thinks it would be successful, then, we'll count the effort. But if it's really superfluous to the issue and isn't really going to solve much, then we all have a lot of other things to be doing.
Okay.
Well, not just that, but I know Tyson is on, but I would certainly suggest fleshing this out with both Tyson and Nick in our office. And I would offer that assistance support from Nick in our office. I won't volunteer Tyson. That's not my role, but
I'm sure Tyson will.
Which Nick?
This.
Desideri.
Okay.
So is that Jared, with Tyson and Nick working together? Does the coordination, I just want to know, is the coordination team in favor of the webinar for the convention center expansion? And I think I'm looking at Rich and Craig more so on, and Neil, you've been very quiet, but are we looking in a positive light with all of the dedication, the effort, and the team? We want to keep the momentum for the convention center at the forefront. And I think the webinar is, in my view, an excellent idea as an informational point of view. So we just need to hear the feedback so that we can move forward.
Tanya, this is Madam President, this is Neil Richardson speaking here. And I would like to say that I think the webinar would be greatly beneficial for those who haven't been able to follow the process, but coming into this with my predecessor, really negotiating and working very closely with the CVC prior to me joining, I think it'll be even helpful for me and my team at SLDC to have that information, that webinar available and accessible across the board. And I know other city development agencies and otherwise, as we are putting together a new cabinet within the mayor's office and others, having that context as we continue to move forward to really understand the historical nature of what was agreed upon, what it took to get to this point, and what's the plan for moving forward. So from my perspective at St. Louis Development Corporation, and aiming to speak on behalf of many of the other city agencies, it would be helpful for us to have that education and context as we're seeking to make more informed decisions as we move forward. So that's my comments. Thank you for the time and the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Neil. Craig, did you want to add something before we close this out?
As kind of sitting on the sidelines and one of the worker bees that's been working on this, it's kind of hard to listen to some of these comments being slung around about what we're not doing. I personally would think it would be a good opportunity to showcase the wonderful team that we've put together and the good work that we've done so far. But I would have to defer to the rest of you guys as far as the politics and the pros and cons from that standpoint. So I stand ready to do whatever you need me to do. Great,
thank you. Rich, Deanna, are there any other comments on the webinar? I'm not going to take a vote if we can just get the concurrence that we can move forward.
No, I just, as I said, I think it can be very informational. I think you can cover a lot of topics. You just cannot get into the specifics of engineers' estimates and construction details and phasing, and you can't get drugged down that road, because if you do, it'll create problems for the bidding and it could taint the bids. So long as you stay away from that, I agree with Craig. It could be a great opportunity to let everybody know that, he had a great team putting this together, and they've done a tremendous amount of work. And, you know, one person's opinion is not always the only opinion there is. So,
I agree with Rich Bradley, and I refer to my previous comments that I stated earlier this evening concerning doing a brief overview of the entire history. And that will also at least put to bed some of the other concerns about, either the Bottle Works District location and or the dome concerns.
Okay.
Madam
So-
President, if I
Go
may,
ahead. Go ahead, Charles. Mr.
Um,
Salisbury.
from what I'm hearing, it seems to me that as president, you may want to convene a committee, possibly headed by Kitty if she is available, to bring back to the next meeting an outline of what would take place, including a timetable, audience, goals, and bring that back to the next meeting for final approval.
Thank you very much. Will do. So we will work between now and our next meeting to get this information together to present to the coordination team on a webinar for the convention center expansion. Are there any new business or any other items that we need to discuss? And at this time. Okay. The one item that I just want to end with is that the city has put their $105 million. We have issued our bonds. There's been a lot of time, a lot of effort. All of us know this. A lot of resources, dedication, commitment into this project. This is a top-notch project with top-notch professionals, and we want to tell our story. And to date, I have some information that I wanted to provide that we have spent about 12.7 million on program management and the design, and I didn't break it out, but 12.7 million to date. And the county has reimbursed approximately 3.9 million of that amount of the 15 that has been set out for the program management and the architecture and design. So the county has put in 3.9 to date, and that is as of October 31st, 2021. So I just wanted to provide that information to you. This is our Thanksgiving holiday weekend, and how they say every day is a day of Thanksgiving. And I'm just so glad to be working with all of you and glad to be working in such a peaceful and great manner, working together with the professionals that we have. So I just want to say happy Thanksgiving to all of you and your families, and many blessings to you.
Thank you,
Thank
Lieutenant.
you. Same to
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
To everybody.
Thank you.
And if there are no more questions or concerns, can we establish a next meeting date, and then we will adjourn the meeting?
I think it should be after December 8th.
Okay. So after December 8th, but hopefully before December the 13th, because you would have your council meeting on December the 14th. So hopefully if we can have it after the meeting, get feedback, but convene together before the council meeting on the 14th, in hopes that we can bring the bill, or the county council will bring the bill off of the perfection calendar. What are we looking like for a meeting on the 10th or the 13th?
How about the 9th?
Kitty say, forget the 10th, we're coming back the next day.
Well,
Uh,
I'm actually out of town on the 10th. So
Okay,
9th or the 13th.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna have one before the following, before the 14th, then the only topic is what happened at the 8th meeting.
sure.
Or
So,
if you want to wait until after the 14th, then we might have something to talk about.
okay,
I don't want to get meeting to death, and I think that's where I feel like we're at right now. I just want something substantive. My opinion. Whenever you all want to do it.
I'm good with the 9th if that works for everybody.
we can do the 9th at 4 o'clock, or we do the 9th at 4 o'clock.
I'm not available at 4. On the 9th, I'm only available between 11:30 and 3:30.
How does that time slot work for everybody else? Somewhere in there.
Can we say 2 o'clock on the 9th?
That works for me.
Okay.
Fine.
Kitty, Deanna,
I'm good.
Charles,
Yes,
okay. Neil, Rich? 2 o'clock?
I'm good.
Great. Okay, so we have set the meeting for 2 o'clock on December the 9th. In hopes that we have some movement on this project. And if there are no more questions or items for discussion, I recommend that we adjourn the meeting at 5:44 p.m. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned, and thank you, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving again.